Alright, hello everyone, hope you're all well, hope you're all staying safe. In today's video, what I want to look at is a game which I have a fairly strong connection to. This game has been around for a good 5 or 6 years now. In fact, I even remember when it came out, and it was very popular when it came out, and it was very much a trend at the time. I'm of course referring to Rocket League. Rocket League is a game where you quite literally play football with cars. The entire premise of Rocket League is so simple but works so well. I'm surprised really that Rocket League or super acrobatic rocket propelled battle cars was the first 2 games to even touch on this topic. Today what I want to do is talk about Rocket League in 2020 because this game has been out for a while. This game's been around, it's had its scene in the competitive sphere, but is the game still relevant in 2020? Well, today I want to take a look at some pros and cons of Rocket League, give my objective opinion of the game, and ultimately conclude to whether or not it is worth a purchase in 2020. So first and foremost, let's start with a few pros. I first want to give credit to Rocket League for its near flawless gameplay. It is so incredibly rare now to find a game which just works, whereby its gameplay is so complex, there's so many layers to it, but ultimately it doesn't fuck up. Ultimately it works as intended. Rocket League is exactly that. The gameplay itself, driving around your car and doing all of these moves and aerials and any kind of movement you can think of, feels perfect. Everything works as expected with literally 0 glitches in gameplay, which is so rare. I can honestly not think of a time where I've been playing Rocket League and something unexpected has happened. Like say for example the ball has disappeared or the goal has fucked up. There isn't really a lot to go wrong with Rocket League, and that's possibly why it just works so goddamn well. This goes hand in hand with the gameplay as well. Hopefully the gameplay does it justice, but this game is just so satisfying. The gameplay, as I said, just works, proper Todd Howard style. There's no complaints on my end about things that could be better or controls that feel wonky. Everything is rebindable on PC. I would recommend you put boost to R1 instead of circle, because circle for boost is the dumbest thing going. But what I'm trying to get at here is that Rocket League is not a glitch fest. You're not going to go through 1,000,001 problems just to play the game. Moving on, Rocket League actually has a very active competitive scene. Now this is surprising considering, you know, Rocket League was big in the competitive sphere like 5 years ago, and there was this surge of Rocket League being like the new esports game. I think it became an esports game within like a week of it releasing or something really quick like that. However, in 2020, when there's bigger games out there like Fortnite or Animal Crossing, Rocket League somehow still has a really fun, intense, active, competitive game mode. Casual is really good in Rocket League, and casual is, I think, what a lot of people play. It's where you can play with friends, you can kind of fuck around, play it more for laughs than for grinding, and then competitive is where you can really test your skills and teamwork. Competitive in Rocket League is done right, it feels well done, there's enough content with it, everything feels mostly balanced, something which I'll get onto a little bit later, but the fact that the competitive scene for Rocket League is still going on 5 years since the game released is just a showcase of how perfect the gameplay is. Relating to this, Rocket League has quite possibly the highest skill ceiling I have ever experienced in a video game. I only have about 400 hours on Rocket League. I think I'm a Plat 2 at the moment, or Plat 3, one of them. But the point is, 400 hours is absolutely nothing. I have still so much more to learn and to practice. The good thing about Rocket League and its skill ceiling is the fact that nothing is artificial. Games usually give you a sense of progression by giving you some better gear or by giving you a level or maybe a new customization item, but for the most part it's very artificial. You're basically being told by the game that you're getting better rather than feeling yourself get better. And this is where Rocket League really fucking shines, because there isn't any artificial progression. You do have a ranking system with some titles and some cosmetics, but for the most part, and I really do mean this, you do genuinely get better the more more you play. There's none of this stuff where you unlock moves based on your rank or you unlock some better items that make you a better player. It's all entirely based on game time and your willingness to learn new aspects of the game. As you play Rocket League and as you sink more hours into it, you learn stuff and you pick things up naturally, which is so good and so rare considering how many games just shove a load of stuff in your face and expect you to digest it at once. But you do over time feel yourself get better, and it starts off with simple things like being able to hit the ball each time you go for it. Maybe then it will be doing a little dribble, maybe it will be knocking the ball off of the wall. You'll notice that you're able to do some tricks and some moves which you were never able to do before. The important part is though, there is nothing stopping you from doing those moves at a lower level. It is more of the fact that the gameplay is so complex, you simply need hours of the game in order to understand how to so-called unlock these new abilities. I'm looking at you, Aerials. And again, relating to this, Rocket League is naturally a great time killer. It's a game which you can sink a stupid amount of hours into and not really feel like you've been robbed of your time. I don't think there's really going to be a point where anyone reaches the top of Rocket League, whereby there's nothing else to improve on or there's nothing else to do. I think the only possible way you could get any closer to that is by getting like 10,000 hours on the game. But even still, once again, it showcases just how much content and how addictive this gameplay really is. Finally, I want to touch on the fact that Rocket League has an incredibly healthy player base overall, which is boosted mostly because of cross-platform play. I think in total, there's usually over 200,000 people playing Rocket League pretty much every day. This means that it is incredibly easy to find games at all times of the day. This includes during weird hours of the morning where you're incredibly drunk and you decide to boot up Rocket League for a couple games. There will be people playing. It's not like any other game where it gets to 5 in the morning and it's a little bit iffy. This game is constantly populated, and it's nice as well to see a 5-year-old game still be so healthy with still a very active community. It is honestly a rarity, especially considering games like Call of Duty and their player base dying off within a couple months of the newest one coming out. Pretty much what I'm trying to get at here, the overall pro of Rocket League is the fact that the gameplay is so solid and it is so satisfying that everything about it always leads back to that central point. It's never going to be like, oh, I'm playing Rocket League because I want to unlock a new decal or I want to get a next rank. It's more like, I want to play Rocket League because I enjoy the gameplay, I want to get better, and everything really does just tie into that. Now, with the pros all said and done, obviously I do have to talk a little bit about the cons because no game is perfect. Rocket League is probably one of the most stable games I've played in terms of crashing, frame rate, optimization, networking. For the most part, the game runs very well. There's not usually any problems, no huge cons that I would bring up. However, there are two things which I would very much like to talk about. First and foremost, there is definitely a visible influence from Epic Games. Rocket League has changed a lot since it came out. It now has so much content, it's almost bloated. But Rocket League is now owned by Epic Games, and you can definitely see that where a bit of the money whoring comes into play. Rocket League used to have crates up until very recently actually, whereby you'd spend £1.89, get a key for a crate, you can crack it open and get a randomized item. With Epic Games taking over Rocket League, or taking over Psyonix, however it works, they now have blueprints instead. Blueprints are basically like, you are guaranteed an item, but in order to get that item you have to use premium currency. The whole system is very engineered towards spending money, and it's really depressing as well, the fact that Rocket League of all games decides to have this. As if that wasn't bad enough, there's also a fucking Rocket Pass. Yeah, this is how you can really tell Epic Games has a say in this game. The whole Rocket Pass and blueprints thing isn't actually the end of the world. Believe it or not, there is no element of pay to win whatsoever. It is just purely cosmetic, but in the context of Rocket League, it just feels a little bit cheesy and out of place. As I said, it does not detract from any gameplay whatsoever. It's really not shoved in your face. It doesn't disadvantage you at all. It's more just annoying and slightly disappointing to see Epic Games' cancer spread all over this wonderful game. And finally, I do want to mention some very precise, minute technical issues which I've experienced with Rocket League. First and foremost, the servers recently have been a little bit shit, probably because everyone and their nan is on the internet and everyone and their great nan is playing Rocket League stuck indoors, which means quite often you'll have really piss poor ping for pretty much no reason. Half the time when I play Rocket League now, I will get latency variation for absolutely no reason. I can do a speed test, get 19 ping, but have 300 ping in-game. It makes zero sense. Other than that though, there is honestly nothing that springs to mind when I think about the negatives of Rocket League. The community can be a little bit toxic, but that's because of the nature of the game. It's hella competitive. People do get angry, and especially on PC, there is a little bit of flaming, but that goes with any multiplayer game. I can't use that against Rocket League because inevitably, free speech on the internet, alright, people are gonna fucking use it. Anyway, to conclude, Rocket League is probably one of the best purchases I have ever made. Without sounding like I'm truly going over the top and like I'm sucking off psionics for some extra premium currency, Rocket League is truly a fantastic game. The fact that you can majority of the time get it on sale for about £7 as well is just a fucking bargain. The fact that there is paid content in an already paid for game should bother me, but because the gameplay itself is so solid and the game is so stable, it really doesn't detract from the experience enough for me to even warrant putting a warning out for it. So in conclusion, yes, buy Rocket League. If you have friends, it will be 100 times more fun. Even if you don't have friends, you will still have a blast and probably feel like you've done more rather than most games that are currently out. Anyways guys, that pretty much sums up today's video. Do let me know what you think of Rocket League in the comment section of the video. If you made it all the way to the end, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Make sure you're staying indoors, wash your hands, stay safe, take care. This is SkintBoot, signing out.